Today, our fellow citizens, our way of life, our very freedom came under attack in a series of deliberate and deadly terrorist acts. The victims were in airplanes or in their offices. Secretaries, businessmen and women, military and federal workers, moms and dads, friends and neighbors. The pictures of airplanes flying into buildings, fires burning, huge structures collapsing, have filled us with disbelief, terrible sadness, and a quiet, unyielding anger. Thousands of lives were suddenly ended by evil, despicable acts of terror. America was targeted for attack because we're the brightest beacon for freedom and opportunity in the world, and no one will keep that light from shining. Today, our nation saw evil, the very worst of human nature, and we responded with the best of America. These acts of mass murder were intended to frighten our nation into chaos and retreat, but they have failed. Our country is strong. A great people has been moved to defend a great nation. Terrorist attacks can shake the foundations of our biggest buildings, but they cannot touch the foundation of America. These acts shatter steel, but they cannot dent the steel of American resolve.
I can hear you, the rest of the world hears you, and the people who knock these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. This is a day when all Americans from every walk of life unite in our resolve for justice and peace. None of us will ever forget this day, yet we go forward to defend freedom and all that is good and just in our world.
Welcome back to another episode of the Algorithm Podcast.
Welcome.
Today's episode, we are talking about probably the second biggest attack ever on America outside of Pearl Harbor.
Yes.
And that is the September 11th attacks of 2001. You were just tot when this happened.
I was quite literally 2 years old.
2 years old. So walk me through September 11th for you.
Well, my mom said that morning she woke up and she turned on the news, and we were kind of just like watching it as she was getting ready for work, and then news started hitting that the first tower had been hit, and she was like, I kind of just like kept an eye on it, but I took you to daycare, and then I went to work, and by the time I got to work, the second tower had been hit, and it was just like chaos for the rest of the day for her, but I was like chilling because I was only 2. So
yeah, I'm a bit older than you. I was in the 5th grade.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where you remember it. So like I have an insane memory. Like I can remember things that happened when I was like 4 years old.
yeah, I can't relate.
Really?
Oh,
I have an
my memory is so bad.
an insane memory. But it's one of those days where you just remember everything that happened.
Yeah.
I was in the 5th grade, and first period started at like 7:30, maybe 8 o'clock. And I can't remember what time that second tower got struck or what time the first one got hit.
I can look it up if you want me to, but
First one got hit, it looked at like 8:46, 17 minutes later, the second one got hit. So we were in first period at 8, but periods lasted an hour long.
Yeah.
Okay, so like halfway through first period, my math teacher got a call, like over the PA system, all teachers come to the office,
Mm.
like right now. Like, so they had teachers' aides. The teachers' aides stayed there, but the teachers went into like the main office and they got told what happened.
Yeah.
All, the teachers ran back into the classroom, pretty much crying, turned on the TV. Class was over, but
Yeah.
we had to stay in class.
Yeah.
So pretty much we got to watch the second tower get
Oh
hit
my god, in 5th grade.
at 9:03. We watched the second tower get hit live.
That's nuts.
And I remember my teacher just screaming
Yeah.
when that happened.
I can
Like,
imagine.
It was I mean, we're 11 years old.
Yeah.
We had no idea what was
You guys were
going
probably
on.
like, rock on. Yeah.
No idea what was going on. And the one thing I can't remember is if we got out of school early, but I don't think we did. I think it was just the rest of the day was just like
Yeah, like
talking
somber
about
and-
what happened. Believe it or not, we actually have 2 newspapers from that
Mm.
day of what happened.
Nice.
So you can imagine, like, every single day, newspapers like that were.
Oh, yeah.
It was insane,
I can imagine.
a wild time. That day changed everything,
Yeah.
everything. But we have a really long one in store with us as far as like reading and goes. So we're just gonna go ahead and get straight to it. The September 11th attacks, commonly known as 9/11, were 4 coordinated Islamist terrorist suicide attacks carried out by Al Qaeda against the United States in 2001. On that morning, 19 terrorists hijacked 4 commercial airliners scheduled to travel from the East Coast to California. Did you know that this was the first time that they had been attacked,
No.
the World Trade Centers?
Mm-mm.
So in 1992 or 1991, I can't remember the date, there was a bomb that
Oh.
went off in one of the towers on the bottom floor. So Biggie has a song that says, blow up like the World Trade, blah, blah, blah. He's talking about that event that happened in the early 90s.
Oh, okay. No,
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
The hijackers crashed the first 2 planes in the 2 twin towers of the World Trade Center in New York City and aimed the next 2 flights towards targets in or near Washington, D.C., in an attack on the nation's capital. The third team succeeded in striking the Pentagon, the headquarters of the U.S. Department of Defense in Arlington County, Virginia, while the 4th plane crashed in rural Pennsylvania during a passenger revolt. The September 11th attacks killed 2,977 people, making it the deadliest terror attack in history. In response to the attacks, the United States waged the multi-decade global war on terror to eliminate hostile groups deemed terrorist organizations, as well as foreign governments purported to support them in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, and other countries. Ringleader Mohammed Atta flew American Airlines Flight 11 into North Tower of the World Trade Center complex in Lower Manhattan at 8:46 a.m. I might butcher some of these names. I'm throwing that out
They're
there.
a little tough.
Yeah. 17 minutes later at 9:03, the World Trade Center's South Tower was hit by United Airlines Flight 175. Both 110-story skyscrapers collapsed within an hour and 41 minutes, bringing about the destruction of the remaining 5 structures in the World Trade Center complex and damaging or destroying nearby buildings.
Which that was like really sad. Building like it was called Building 7. That
Mhm.
one that was like kind of shaped weird.
Mm-hmm.
Watching that one fall for apparently no reason was like I didn't know that happened. Like that's one of those things that I learned for the first time.
No conspiracy stuff will be spoken
yeah.
about in this episode
Yeah.
out of respect to the people who passed away.
Right.
That's a different rabbit hole. That's a different episode.
I didn't even go down that rabbit hole because I know that it's
An
out
insane,
there. Yeah.
insane.
And it's so touchy and I don't want to be disrespectful. So just
Correct.
say
Because
that-
people did die.
Yes, a lot of people
3,000
died.
people died.
Yes.
I mean,
And like those people on the planes like had absolutely nothing to do with it at all and they still lost their lives. So
Mhm.
anyways, but Building 7 falling I thought was super interesting cuz that's something I didn't know. Like some of this stuff I knew was common knowledge, but some of it was like I'm learning it for the first time because world history is not my thing.
that's always been mine.
I know
love
it's so
world
bad
history.
of me.
I'm reading a
hated-
book right now, off subject, but I sent a picture of it in the group chat. Brad
yeah.
Meltzer's The Conspiracy to Kill Lincoln.
Yeah.
So like when he got assassinated, obviously he got assassinated, but
Yeah.
there was a conspiracy to kill him another time.
Oh.
Yeah, it's I
Yeah.
love world history.
I hated my world history teacher. So
I loved mine. So
Ooh,
that's the
no,
difference.
I
yeah.
did not pay attention at all. Fuck that guy.
Yeah.
But I think that
Shout
was
out my daughter.
I think that's why I just never got into it. So like some of this I was learning for the first time, and that was super interesting.
Yeah. There was actually a new video that just got released of a different view of when the towers got hit.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
And it's so crazy.
Yeah.
So crazy. Like seeing that big of an explosion.
Is so like it made my stomach drop. Everything that I watched and heard was like one of those things where I was like clutching the blanket that I was wrapped up in, and I was like, holy shit, like this is a real thing that happened.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get to it, but like the sounds of people hitting the ground.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, this
Mm,
is a very touchy one.
yes.
But yeah, it's a big part of our history.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, happened 23 years ago.
Yeah.
Almost the 25th anniversary.
Mm.
American Airlines Flight 77 flew towards Washington, D.C. and crashed into the Pentagon at 9:37 a.m., causing a partial collapse. The fourth and final flight, United Airlines Flight 93, also changed course towards Washington, believed by investigators to target either the United States Capitol or the White House. Alerted to previous attacks, the passengers revolted against the hijackers. You ever seen United 93, the movie?
No, I didn't get to watch it in time. I really didn't even know that it was a
Heartbreaker.
thing. But
Heartbreaker.
yeah, I can imagine.
There's
that's
two
tough.
movies that you need to watch, and they're both gut-wrenching. United 93 and Nicolas Cage's World Trade Center. He plays a firefighter chief.
Oh yeah, I remember you telling me about that
Yep.
one.
The hijackers crashed the aircraft into Stony Creek Township Field near Skanksville, Pennsylvania at 10:03 a.m. The Federal Aviation Administration ordered an indefinite ground stop for all air traffic in the U.S. airspace at 9:45 a.m., 59 minutes following the first impact, preventing any further aircraft departures until September 13th, requiring all airborne aircraft to return to their point of origin or divert to Canada. The actions undertaken in Canada to support incoming aircraft and their occupants were collectively titled Operation Yellow Ribbon.
Okay, I didn't know that.
That evening, CIA informed President George W. Bush that its counterterrorism center had identified the attacks as having been the work of Al-Qaeda under Osama bin Laden. Osama bin Laden.
Big name right there.
Big name.
Mm-hmm.
The United States formally responded by launching the War on Terror and invading Afghanistan to depose the Taliban, which rejected the conditions of U.S. terms to expel al-Qaeda from Afghanistan and extradite its leaders. The U.S. is at invocation of Article 5 of the North Atlantic Treaty, its only usage to date, called upon allies to fight al-Qaeda. The U.S. and NATO's invasion forces swept through Afghanistan. Bin Laden eluded them by disappearing into the White Mountains, which that was a big thing. Like, he was always hiding in mountains during that time. He denied any involvement until 2004, when excerpts of a taped statement in which he accepted responsibility for the attacks were released. Al-Qaeda's cited motivations included U.S. support of Israel, the presence of U.S. military bases in Saudi Arabia, and sanctions against Iraq. The nearly decade-long manhunt for bin Laden concluded on May 2nd, 2011, when he was killed during the U.S. military raid on his compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan.
I was in school when that happened.
Yeah,
I remember
SEAL Team 6.
I remember that was one of those things for me that everybody stopped and the TV got turned on and it was reported by,
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Obama. We all had to sit there and we were like, we didn't understand because we were young at that time. But then our teacher went through and was like, this is what happened. It was a while ago. You guys were babies, but now we're up to date. And the person who caused that attack is now
Wild.
deadsies.
Which that is an episode in itself. SEAL Team 6.
Nuts.
Crazy story.
Yeah.
The war in Afghanistan continued for another 8 years until the agreement was made in February of 2020 for American and NATO troops to withdraw from the country. The last members of the U.S. Armed Forces left the region on August 30th, 2021, after which the Taliban rapidly returned to power. Ayman al-Zawahiri, another planner of the attacks, who succeeded bin Laden as leader of Al-Qaeda, was killed by a U.S. drone strikes in Kabul, Afghanistan on July 31st, 2022.
Okay, I didn't know that either. So he kind of like stepped in for him, took over for him,
And then died.
and then also.
There's a pattern here.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Excluding the hijackers, the attacks killed 2,977 people, injured thousands more, and gave rise to substantial long-term health consequences, while also causing at least $10 billion in infrastructure and property damage. Billion.
Phew.
It remains the deadliest terrorist attack in history, as well as the deadliest incident for firefighters and law enforcement personnel in American history, killing 343 and 72 members respectively.
Mm.
Wow. The loss of life stemming from the impact of Flight 11 made it the most lethal multi-plane crash in aviation history, followed by the death toll and cured by Flight 175. The destruction of the World Trade Center and its environs seriously harmed the U.S. economy and induced global market shocks. Many other countries strengthened anti-terrorism legislation and expanded their powers of law enforcement and intelligence agencies. The total number of deaths caused by the attacks, combined with the death tolls from the conflicts they directly incited, has been estimated by the Cost of War Project to be over $4.5 million. Cleanup of the World Trade Center site took 8 months and was completed in May of 2002. That is insane.
Yeah.
Insane. It took 8 months to clean up all that
Just
debris and
to clean it
just to
up.
clean it up. Man. Dude. While the Pentagon was repaired within a year. After delays in the design of a replacement complex, 6 new buildings were planned to replace the lost towers, along with a museum and memorial dedicated to those who were killed or injured in the attacks. The tallest building, One World Trade Center, began construction in November of 2006. It opened in November of 2014. Memorials to the attacks include the National September 11th Memorial Museum.
Sorry, I did that right. I was trying to
in New York City, the Pentagon Memorial in Arlington County, Virginia, and Flight 93 National Memorial at the Pennsylvania crash site.
I would love to go see that in person.
Me too.
Like the Ground Zero Memorial.
Me too.
Oof.
I've told Erica that's a bucket list of mine.
Oh,
Go to New York
man.
City. I'm a Yankees fan, so Yankee Stadium,
Yeah.
Statue of Liberty, Empire State Building.
Hmm.
What do they call that?
Don't ask me.
Times Square.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
okay.
the World Trade Center
Yeah.
Memorial. That's just like bucket list for me.
Yeah.
Let's talk about like the man behind it all. Okay. I don't know if this is we're gonna go off topic a little bit. I don't know if this is gonna get into it, but that morning of the attacks, Bush was in Florida
Yes.
reading to a school,
Second graders.
second graders.
He was getting ready to read to a class of second graders.
Yes, and when the attacks happened, he is reading, obviously,
Mhm.
and you can kind of see there's like reporters. Obviously, it's the president. He's out of
Mhm.
school. There's going to be reporters there, Secret Service, all those people are in the background.
Yeah.
And he's reading to the classroom, or he's reading along with the classroom. You can just hear the Secret Service and the reporters and stuff talking back and
Yeah.
forth because they know what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is when the first tower gets hit. When the second tower gets hit, that's when they knew they were under
No,
attack.
there's something going on here.
His lead Secret Service member goes up to him in the middle of reading and says, this is all he said. He said, the second tower had just been hit.
Mm-hmm.
We are under attack, and walks away. And then you can instantly see Bush's like smile just go away.
Oh.
Like he just starts staring straight at a wall.
Yeah.
Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Hit. Boys and girls, sound this word out. Get ready. Steel. What word? Steel. Yes, steel. Read these words the fast way. Get ready. Playing. Yes, playing. Get ready. Must. Yes, must. Let's read these words the fast way without making a mistake. Get ready. Kite. Yes, kite. Get ready. Kit. Yes, kit, Sonny. 60 on page 153. count of 3. Try it again. Get ready from the beginning of that sentence. Get ready.
She played with her goat in her house.
Go on.
She played with her goat in her yard.
Good job. Go on.
Mr. President, are you aware of
Thank you.
the reports of the
Please
plane
step
crash in
outside.
New York? And is there anything?
Talk about it later.
Thank you all. You can step out the door we came in.
Cooperation between nations to deal with this.
They're getting confirmation from United Airlines that its flights, United 90.
They set the date for this before the planes were
I'm going to turn right now back to my colleague in New York, Aaron Brown.
And to conduct a full-scale investigation to hunt down and to find those folks who committed this act. Terrorism against our nation will not stand. And now if you join me in a moment of silence.
Yeah, the video that I watched was like, that's when he realized like the heaviness of being the president of the United States. He was like dumbfounded.
One of the most remarkable things in history is he did not, and people don't like that he did this, but I actually like that he did this. He did not stop reading to the class.
Yeah.
He continued, finished the book, but
Yeah.
you can, that entire time you can tell something was wrong with
Yeah.
him. Okay? After the book is done,
Mhm.
the reporters bombard him with questions. President, what do you think about the attacks? Blah, 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 blah. He doesn't say anything.
Yeah.
He gets rushed to a room, watches 10 seconds of the film of what
Mhm.
happened, walks away,
Yeah.
leaves. What I didn't know was he addressed the nation in front of in front of all of the kids.
No way.
Yeah, so
didn't know
his
that.
president, we need a statement
Yeah.
to the world. It's get ready, blah blah blah.
Mhm.
All the kids are around him. America's just been attacked, blah blah blah. Imagine being in second
No.
grade and the president of the United States just said we're under attack.
Mm.
Insane. I'll play this. I'll play
Yeah.
this clip.
I did not know that he was.
He addressed the nation in front of all the kids.
Wow.
Wild.
That's nuts.
From there, he gets taken. The Secret Service says, we have to go. He
Yeah.
gets taken to Air Force One,
Mhm.
straight up into the sky, and stays there
Yeah.
because you have to protect the
Right.
president, right?
Right.
You know, I mean, same with Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney was the VP.
Yes.
He gets pulled from the White House.
Yes.
We got to go into, they said Crown's under the attack, which Crown was the secret code word for the White House.
Okay.
Crown might be under attack. There's a plane headed for
Mhm.
D.C. Well, it hit the Pentagon.
Yeah.
Plane headed for D.C. They take him to the president's, like, there's like a bunker that they
Yes.
have,
Yeah.
like, to prepare them from, like,
Yeah.
nuclear war.
I watched an interview with him where he was talking about like his experience with it, and he was like, it was just crazy. He was like, it was straight chaos.
He's such, like, he is, people hate on Dick Cheney, but that dude was outside of the Pentagon helping people.
Yeah.
Yep. Helping people.
Listening to him talk was pretty neat because like hearing his side of things, and of course people were like, do you regret what you did? You blah 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 blah. And he was like, no, I don't regret anything. Like, we did what we could, what we knew how, all that stuff. But
There's interviews with firefighters, and they said once that second plane hit, once you knew it was, and this is CIA too.
Yeah.
Once you knew this wasn't an accident.
Yeah.
We're under attack. Everything's off the board.
yeah.
Like we weren't prepared for this. Like everything's different now. We have, I think they said there was only 3 planes. There's only 3 fighter jets along the East Coast guarding 23 states. That was our security in 2001.
I did not know that.
That was our security.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's not like that now.
No, it's
If you
crazy.
get in 1,000-mile radius from us, you're getting talked to.
Yeah.
Yeah. But off track, we're back on it. Osama bin Laden. Bin Laden orchestrated the September 11th attacks. He initially denied involvement, but later recanted his denial. Al Jazeera broadcast, oh yeah, that's these fucking guys. Al Jazeera broadcast a statement by him on September 16th, 2001, and I quote, I stress that I have not carried out this act, which appears to have been carried out by individuals with their own motivation. In November 2001, U.S. forces recovered a videotape from a destroyed house in
Jalalabad.
Jalalabad, Afghanistan. In the video, bin Laden talking to Khalid al-Harbi admitted foreknowledge of the attacks. On December 27th, 2001, a second video of bin Laden was released in which he, stopping short of admitting responsibility for the attacks, said, "It has become clear that the West in general and America in particular have an unspeakable hatred for Islam. It is the hatred of crusaders. Terrorism against America deserves to be praised because it was a response to injustice, aimed at forcing America to stop its support for Israel, which kills our people. We say that the end of the United States is imminent, whether bin Laden or his followers are alive or dead, for the awakening of the Muslim Ummah has occurred. It is important to hit the economy of the United States, which is the base of its military power. If the economy is hit, they would become reoccupied." Yeah, I take no responsibility, but I'm pretty much saying, yeah, you guys got what you deserve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Shortly before the 2004 U.S. presidential election, bin Laden used a taped statement to publicly acknowledge al-Qaeda's involvement in the attacks. He admitted his direct link to the attacks and said they were carried out because the events that affected my soul in a direct way started in 1982, when America permitted the Israelis to invade Lebanon, and American Sixth Fleet helped in that. This bombardment began, and many were killed and injured, and others were terrorized and displaced. I couldn't forget those moving scenes, blood in several limbs, women and children sprawled everywhere. Houses were destroyed along with their occupants. High rises demolished over their residents, rockets raining down on our home without mercy. As I looked at those demolished towers in Lebanon, it entered my mind that we should punish the oppressor in kind, and that we should destroy towers in America so that they taste some of what we tasted, and so that they be deterred from killing our women and children. And that day it was confirmed to me that oppression and intentional killing of innocent women and children is deliberate American policy. Destruction is freedom and democracy, while resistance is terrorism and intolerance.
So basically, he wanted to pay us back by killing our women and children and
Yeah.
hitting towers like theirs were hit.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. War.
Interesting.
Okay, let's talk about the attacks. Early on the morning of Tuesday, September 11th, 2001, 19 hijackers took control of 4 commercial airliners, which consisted of 2 Boeing 757s and 2 Boeing 767s. Big-ass fucking planes.
Huge.
Big-ass planes.
Yes, I did not realize how big they
Yeah.
were until I started learning like just the basics of how many people were on the plane, how many like gallons of fuel were on the plane, all of that stuff. I was like, good God,
Yeah.
they were huge.
Yep. En route to California after takeoffs from Logan International Airport in Boston, Massachusetts, Newark Liberty International Airport in Newark, New Jersey, and Washington Dulles International Airport in Loudoun and Fairfax counties in Virginia. Large planes with long flights were selected for hijacking because they would have more fuel. Adas said to hijack Boeing aircraft based on his understanding of the autopilot feature.
Okay.
Which, the fact that these dudes were even able to hijack these fucking planes is insane.
That's
These dudes are on the FBI most wanted list.
Yes.
Like,
That's what
I'm
kind
telling
of,
you, this changed everything.
Yeah.
Airport security, everything.
Yeah.
This
Even like
changed
the
everything.
next day, it started like they were putting stuff into place for the airports and people traveling.
Yeah.
I remember hearing that, and I was like, well, no, yeah,
Yeah.
we probably should.
Okay. At 7:59 a.m., American Airlines Flight 11 took off from Logan International Airport in Boston. 15 minutes into the flight, 5 hijackers armed with box cutters took over the plane,
Box cutters.
injuring at least 3 people and possibly killing 1 before forcing their way into the cockpit. The terrorists also displayed an apparent explosive and sprayed mace into the cabin to frighten the hostages into submission and further hinder resistance. Back at Logan, United Airlines Flight 175 took off at 8:14 a.m., approximately the same time as Flight 11's hijacking. Hundreds of miles southwest at Dulles International Airport, American Airlines Flight 77 left the runway at 8:20 a.m. Flight 175's journey proceeded normally for 28 minutes until 8:42 a.m., when a group of 5 hijacked the plane, murdering both pilots and stabbing several crew members before assuming control of the aircraft. These hijackers also used bomb threats to instill fear into the passengers and crew, also spraying chemical weapons to disable any opposition. Concurrently, United Airlines Flight 93 departed from Newark International Airport, New Jersey. Originally scheduled to pull away from the gate at 8 a.m., this plane was running 42 minutes late.
Okay.
At 8:46 a.m., Flight 11 was deliberately crashed into the north face of the World Trade Center's North Tower, or 1 WTC, although the initial presumption by many was that it was an accident. At 8:51 a.m., American Airlines, so this is 5 minutes later? At 8:51 a.m., American Airlines Flight 77 was also taken over by another group of 5 who forcibly entered the cockpit 31 minutes after takeoff. Although the hijackers on this flight were equipped with knives, there were no reports of anyone on board being stabbed, nor did the 2 people who made phone calls, mention the use of mace or a bomb threat. Those phone calls, man.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah.
So sad.
17 minutes after the first plane crashed into the North Tower, Flight 175 was flown into the South Tower's southern facade. At 9:03 a.m., demonstrating the first crash was not an accident, but rather a deliberate act of terrorism.
Which that one already had like millions of people tuned in watching, because there was like live rolling reports coming in, and
Oh yeah,
everybody's eyes were on that tower when it got
my eyes were on that tower.
nuts.
As a kid, we're just watching this tower just like smoking,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden you just see it. Yeah.
Nuts. That was like one of those things that like super shocked me. Obviously I knew what happened, but like watching it again, it doesn't matter when you watch it. Like it's
Just knowing what happens in that moment.
yes, it like rattled me. I was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so awful.
4 men aboard Flight 93 struck suddenly, killing at least 1 passenger after having waited 46 minutes to make their move. A holdup that proved disastrous for the terrorists when combined with a delayed takeoff from the runway. They stormed the cockpit and seized control of the plane at 9:28 a.m., turning the plane eastbound and setting course for Washington, D.C. Much like their counterparts on the first 2 flights, the 4th team used bomb threats and filled the cabin with mace. 9 minutes after Flight 93's hijacking, Flight 77 crashed into the west side of the Pentagon. Because of the 2 delays, the passengers and crew of Flight 93 had time to be made aware of the previous attacks through phone calls to the ground, and as a result, an uprising was hastily organized to take control of the aircraft at 9:57 a.m. Within minutes, the passengers had fought their way to the front of the cabin and began breaking down the cockpit door. Fearing their captives would gain the upper hand, the hijackers rolled the plane and pitched it into a nosedive, crashing into the field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania, southeast of Pittsburgh at 10:03 a.m. The plane was about 20 minutes away from reaching D.C. at the time of the crash, and its target is believed to have been either the Capitol building or the White House.
Which that plane was going the fastest of the 4, which I have how fast they were going. Yes. So the one that crashed into the North Tower was going 465 miles per hour. The one that crashed into the South Tower was going 500 miles per hour. The flight that crashed into the Pentagon was going 530 miles per hour. And the flight that crashed into the empty field in Pennsylvania was going 563 miles per hour.
Jesus.
Like, when they describe how big that hole was in the field.
Like an asteroid hit.
Yeah. And, like, the plane hit so hard that it, like, basically disintegrated from how fast it was going. Like, Oh my God. I
Yeah,
cannot imagine. Like,
those people died instantly.
the last moments on that plane had to be like,
Those people are heroes.
yeah.
Heroes.
I just don't even have words for like the amount of fear that they must have felt knowing what was going on.
I sometimes think about what it would be like today if those people didn't take over that plane.
Yeah.
If that plane hits the Capitol building, like, have you ever seen like White House Down or any of those movies?
Mm-mm.
Like Olympus Is Falling or something like that. Like,
No, I was like this close to watching that one with my friend, but we didn't.
yeah, like you're talking like it was already bad enough, but if a plane hits the White House,
Yeah.
like
I can't imagine.
I mean, granted, I don't think like all of the government and political leaders were in the bunker, but
Yeah.
still, that would have been rough.
Yeah. Oof.
Some passengers and crew members who called from the aircraft using the cabin airphone service and mobile phones provided details. Several hijackers were aboard each plane. They used mace, tear gas, or pepper spray to overcome attendants, and some people aboard had been stabbed. Reports indicated hijackers stabbed and killed pilots, flight attendants, and one or more passengers. According to the 9/11 Commission's final report, the hijackers had recently purchased multi-function hand tools and assorted Leatherman-type utility knives with locking blades, which were not forbidding to passengers at the time. Wild.
Nuts.
But these were not found among the possessions left behind by the hijackers. A flight attendant on Flight 11, a passenger on Flight 175, and passengers on Flight 93 said the hijackers had bombs, but one of the passengers said he thought the bombs were fake.
Yeah.
The FBI found no traces of explosives at each crash site, or at the crash sites, and the 9/11 Commission concluded that the bombs were probably fake. On at least two of the hijacked flights, American 11 and United 93, the terrorists claimed over the PA system that they were taking hostages and returning to the airport to have a ransom demand met, a clear attempt to prevent passengers from fighting back. Both attempts failed, however, as both hijacker pilots in these instances, Muhammad Atta and Ziad Jarrah, keyed the wrong switch and mistakenly transmitted their messages to ATC instead of the people on the plane as intended, tipping off the flight controllers that the planes had been hijacked.
Which, like, that's another one of those split moments where, like, if they actually sent it to the cab and not to, you know, how much that would have changed things.
I don't think they would have taken over the plane.
Yeah, like a split second mistake was made, and it saved what was about to happen.
That day was so fucking wild.
Yeah.
So wild.
It is crazy to just look back on it in general, and it's nuts.
3 buildings in the World Trade Center collapsed due to fire-induced structural failure. Although the South Tower was struck 17 minutes after the North Tower, the plane's impact zone was far lower, at a much faster speed and into a corner with unevenly balanced additional structural weight, causing it to collapse first at 9:59 a.m., having burned for 56 minutes in the fire caused by the crash of the United Airlines Flight 175 and the explosion of its fuel. The North Tower lasted another 29 minutes before collapsing at 10:28 a.m., 1 hour and 42 minutes after being struck by American Airlines Flight 11. Watching those towers fall.
Oh my freaking gosh. Now, that's one of those things that I honestly don't remember that I've ever seen before. So diving into this episode and just watching the absolute chaos of like what was happening even in the hour after they had been hit and when they actually fell, like I don't feel like anybody in that area was prepared for them to actually fall the way that they did, because you could just see the panic on people's faces as they turned and started like scattering.
Something from a horror movie.
Yeah. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah. When the North Tower collapsed, debris fell on the nearby 7 World Trade Center building, damaging the building and starting fires. These fires burned for nearly 7 hours, compromising the building's structural integrity, and 7 WTC collapsed at 5:21 p.m. The west side of the Pentagon sustained significant damage. At 9:42 a.m., The FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, grounded all civilian aircraft within the continental U.S., and civilian aircraft already in flight were told to land immediately. Yeah, they pretty much said, no more planes.
Yeah, we're done.
We're done with planes for today. And I
Yeah.
can't remember how long it took them to get back going. We might get into that. I remember when they were getting on the plane to load Bush up to go to Air Force One to go in the sky, every single person had to be checked for a bomb.
Really?
Yeah, because
I
they didn't
mean-
know if there was an operative
Yeah.
here to kill the president or
Right.
not. They said if you don't get checked for a bomb, if you don't get bomb screened, you're getting left at the school.
Dang.
Yeah.
I mean, I can imagine like how high stress it was.
Oh, it was bad.
Oof.
Yeah. So it goes. So if the president dies, the presidency goes to the VP. If the VP dies, it goes to the Speaker of the House.
Mhm.
They were having talks with the Speaker of the House, like we got to get you
Mhm.
out of here into a tunnel somewhere else because, as far as we know,
Yeah.
the president and the VP could be killed today.
Right. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Like the pressure just
Yeah.
was applied everywhere.
Yep.
Everywhere.
Insane. Yeah. All international civilian aircraft were either turned back or redirected to airports in Canada or Mexico and were banned from landing on United States territory for 3 days.
3 days.
No flights.
Wow.
No flights.
I did not know that.
That doesn't seem like a long time.
That's a long time.
But that's a long time.
And that's a lot of flights.
Yeah. That's a lot. Yeah.
Wow.
And I want to say when they got back going, it was very limited.
Oh, I'm sure.
Like
They probably took those 3 days to change everything.
mhm.
Wow.
The attacks created widespread confusion among news organizations and air traffic controllers. Among unconfirmed and often contradictory reports aired throughout the day, one of the most prevalent claimed a car bomb had been detonated on the United States Department headquarters in Washington, D.C. Another jet, Delta Airlines Flight 1989, was suspected of having been hijacked, but the aircraft responded to controllers and landed safely in Cleveland, Ohio.
Mm.
In an April 2002 interview, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and Ramzi bin al-Shib,
Yep.
pat myself on the back for that one,
Mhm.
who are believed to have organized the attacks, said Flight 93's intended target was the United States Capitol, not the White House.
Hmm.
Yikes. During the planning stage of the attacks, Muhammad Atta, Flight 11 hijacker and pilot, thought the White House might be too tough of a target and sought an assessment from Hani Hanjour, who attacked and piloted Flight 77. Muhammad said Al-Qaeda initially planned to target nuclear installations rather than the World Trade Center and the Pentagon, but decided against it, fearing things could get out of control. Could you imagine?
No.
A hijacked plane? What in the world?
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
That kind of, I didn't know that. That kind of like took me by surprise. Wow. Final decisions on targets, according to Muhammad, were left in the hands of the pilots. If any pilot could reach its intended target, he was to crash the plane.
I just can't.
These guys are a different breed.
Yeah. I mean, it takes someone real special
Yeah.
to do what they did, and not special in a good way.
Like a different breed.
Different.
Okay. The attack on the World Trade Center's North Tower single-handedly made 9/11 the deadliest act of terrorism in world history. Taken together, the 4 crashes caused the deaths of 2,996 people, including the hijackers, and injured thousands more. Just look at that picture right here.
I know.
You see that?
Oh my gosh.
Just people just jumping out of the building.
Yes, like where the plane had hit, it was the floors above, right? The people were trying to like.
Yeah, because where the plane had hit, so Mayor Giuliani at the time was debriefed on getting people out of the building. He was like,
Yeah.
how are we getting people out of the building?
Yeah.
And they pretty much told him in a simple way, like people above where the plane said, you can't do nothing.
Yeah.
Because you can't get there.
Yeah.
And at that moment, he knew just like those people were going to die.
Which I had watched a video where they talked about how poorly these buildings were designed when it came to like escape routes and how narrow the staircases were.
But they're also not built to
get smashed by
by a
airplanes.
fucking Boeing 757.
Yeah. So like,
I don't mean to laugh, but man, but I mean,
it's one of those things where like when I was watching it, I was like, yeah, that makes total sense to have a building that big with no way for people to get out safely. And like there were a lot of people who were talking about when the buildings were made that that just like wasn't taken into accountability when they were being put
it'd
up.
almost be like you'd have to have like
I just want, how do
like
you even,
parachutes, maybe
yeah,
like some
everybody
something?
gets their own freaking parachute.
But then it's just like you're gonna run into a building. I don't know what you do.
Yeah.
I just don't know what you do.
Yeah, and there was one video that I watched of a survivor who was in, I think he was in the South Tower. And when the North Tower got hit, they told them to stay in their offices, don't move just yet. And he was like, I knew that something wasn't right. So he was like, I went to the staircase and started getting down. And he was like, I only got like 15 floors down before it started getting super packed because people were like also trying to get out. And he was like, I literally couldn't move. And when that second plane hit, it was like in that same area that he had just left. And he was like, at that point, we didn't know what it was, but people were just like sitting in the staircases and waiting to be rescued. And he was like, I literally stood there and I was like, you have to go, like move. We have to get out of this building. And he was like, when he got to the bottom and he looked up and he saw just like thousands of people like scattered and screaming and hysterical. And he saw people jumping from buildings, bodies everywhere. He was like, I still didn't understand what was happening, but all I knew was that I needed to run as
Should be your
far as I
instinct, yeah.
could in the other direction. So he was like, I started booking it, and it wasn't too long after he got like a good distance away from it that they started falling. And he was like, I know that my office had people in it that didn't move because they were told not to move. And he was like, every single one of them died.
That's
The people in
so
the
bad,
staircases
man.
that couldn't get down died. Like that story was
Yeah.
like the realization for me that it was very real for people. And like it's nuts to think that people actually were in the building and survived it.
Yeah, one of the firefighters said he said I can't imagine people just jumping out at okay, I'm just gonna kill myself. He said
Yeah.
I think they jumped out because they would rather jump out than be burned.
Yeah.
Like I mean,
Have a whole freaking building collapse on them. Like I'm sure that probably wasn't even the first thing that came to their mind. It was more so like just the reality of it and trying to get away from it, but knowing that like there was no safe way to get out. Oh my gosh.
it's a nightmare. This whole thing was a nightmare.
Yeah.
The death toll included 265 on the 4 planes, from which there were no survivors. 2,606 in the World Trade Center. Jesus.
Yeah.
And in the surrounding area, and 125 at the Pentagon, which I'm surprised only 125 people died at the Pentagon.
Yeah. That was
Yeah, where it hit, I mean, I'm not saying, it's a good spot where it hit. Obviously, people died, but it could have been a lot worse.
could have been a lot worse.
Yeah. Most who died were civilians, as well as 343 fighter fighters, 72 law enforcement officers, 55 military personnel, and 19 terrorists. After New York, New Jersey lost the most state citizens. More than 90 countries lost citizens in the attacks. In New York City, more than 90% of the workers and visitors who died in the towers had been at or above the points of impact, what we just talked about.
Yeah.
In the North Tower, between 1,344 and 1,402 people were at above or one floor below the point of attack, and all died. Hundreds were killed instantly the moment the plane struck. The estimated 800 people who survived the impact were trapped and died in the fires or from smoke inhalation. Fell or jumped from the tower to escape the smoke and flames, or were killed in the building's collapse. The destruction of all 3 staircases in the North Tower when Flight 11 hit made it impossible for anyone from the impact zone upward to escape. 107 people not trapped by the impact died. When the plane struck between floors 93 and 99, the 92nd floor was also rendered inescapable when the crash severed all elevator shafts, while debris falling from the impact zone blocked the stairwells, ensuring the deaths of all 69 workers on the floor below the point of impact.
That's like, it's just like
Nightmare.
The statistics are nuts.
Yeah. Yep.
Nuts.
In the South Tower, around 600 people were on or above the 77th floor when the Flight 175 struck and few survived. As with the North Tower, hundreds were killed at the moment of impact. Unlike those at the North Tower, the estimated 300 survivors of the crash were not technically trapped by the damage done by 175's impact, but most were either unaware that a means of escape still existed or were unable to use it. One stairway, Stairwell A, narrowly avoided being destroyed in Flight 175, crashed through the building, allowing 14 people located on the floors of impact, including Stanley Permont, I guess, a man who saw the plane coming at him.
That's crazy. That's nuts.
Yeah. And 4 more from the floors above to escape. God, man. New York City 911 operators who received calls from people inside the tower were not well informed of the situation as it rapidly unfolded as a result, told callers not to descend the tower on their own. In total, 630 people died in the South Tower, fewer than half the number that killed in the North Tower. Of the 100 to 200 people witnessed jumping or falling to their deaths that morning, only 3 recorded sightings were from the South Tower. Casualties in the South Tower were significantly reduced because occupants decided to leave the building immediately following the first crash, and because Eric Eisenberg, an executive at AON Insurance, made the decision to evacuate the floors occupied by AON, floors 92 and 98 through 105, in the moments following the impact of Flight 11. That 17-minute gap allowed over 900 of the 1,100 AON employees present on site to evacuate from above the 77th floor before the South Tower was struck. Good for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Eisenberg was among nearly the 200 who did not escape. Wow. That's sad, man.
Yeah.
Similar pre-impact evacuations were carried out by companies such as Fiduciary Trust CSC and Euro Brokers, all of whom had offices on floors above the point of impact. The failure to order a full evacuation of the South Tower after the first plane crash in the North Tower was described by USA Today as one of the day's great tragedies.
Yeah. I can imagine like piling that many more deaths on top of who had already died because you literally told people to just stay put because you didn't know what was happening. Heck no. Get out of there.
We've seen a fucking plane hit the tower.
Get out of there.
We've seen a plane hit the tower. What more do you need to see?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's like a, what is it?
Like a precautionary thing? I don't
Fight
know.
or flight. Your fight or flight kicks in and like you either freeze or you go. I feel like in that moment, a lot of people were just like frozen in fear. Like they didn't know what to do. It was all new to everybody. But man, kudos to those people who were like, no, I'm getting out of here. Come with me. We're going. But golly, I can't imagine that many people being stuck in a stairwell just like waiting for somebody to come rescue them. Like literally sitting on the stairs just waiting.
Yeah. So around like after 9/11 happened, there was a raisined sense of racism towards people of that, like Muslims and stuff like that. Like you couldn't like people. I don't want to like cross the line here saying stuff like this, but like it got really bad for those people in America when that happened.
Yeah.
A poll of Arab Americans conducted in May 2002 found that 20% had personally experienced discrimination since September 11th. A July 2002 poll of Muslim Americans found that 48% believed their lives had changed for the worse since September 11th, and 57% had experienced an act of bias or discrimination. Sucks, man.
Yeah.
Following the September 11th attacks, many Pakistani Americans identified themselves as Indians to avoid potential discrimination and to obtain jobs. In the days immediately following the attacks, many memorials and vigils were held around the world, and photographs of the dead and missing were posted around Ground Zero. A witness described being unable to get away from the faces of innocent victims who were killed. Their pictures are everywhere, on phone booths, streetlights, and walls of subway stations. Everything reminded me of a huge funeral. People were quiet and sad, but also very nice. Before New York gave me a cold feeling. Now people were reaching out to help each other. President Bush proclaimed Friday, September 14th, 2001 as Patriot Day. So that's where Patriot Day comes from.
Okay.
One of the first memorials was the Tribute in Light, an installation of 88 searchlights at the footprints of the World Trade Center towers. That's a cool site.
Yeah, it is.
In New York City, the World Trade Center site memorial competition was held to design an appropriate memorial on the site. The winning design, reflecting absence, was selected in August of 2006 and consists of a pair of reflecting pools and the footprints of the towers.
It gives me cold chills just like thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing that they did that, but golly, it is so awful that it happened.
Surrounded by a list of victims' names in an underground memorial space. The memorial was completed on September 11th, 2011. 10 years to the day.
Yeah.
A museum was also opened on the site on May 21st, 2014.
Wow.
The sphere by the German sculptor Fritz Koenig is the world's largest bronze sculpture of modern times and stood between the Twin Towers on the Austin J. Tobin Plaza of the World Trade Center in New York City from 1971 until the terrorist attacks on September 11, 2001. The sculpture, weighing more than 20 tons, was the only remaining work of art to be recovered largely intact from the ruins of the collapsed Twin Towers after the attacks. That's wild.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Since then, the work of art known in the U.S. as the Sphere has been transformed into an important symbolic monument of 9/11 commemoration. We can end it right there.
Okay.
Let's just end it right there. There's obviously so much more we could have talked about.
Yeah.
Like we could have got into the 9/11 commission tapes, but we would have been here for 3 days.
Yeah, and everything that happened at like Ground Zero and the days following that's also a really big one that we could cover, but it's a lot. It's just a lot to take in.
Yeah, hopefully we don't have to experience something like that again in our lifetimes. I know it wasn't much to you.
Yeah.
But man, that day was different.
Yeah.
That day was different. It definitely changed everything. Anything else you got left?
Not that I can think of.
Okay, I think we'll end it right there.
Go learn about it.
Go learn about it because
go learn about it.
There's so much more,
Yeah.
obviously. And like I said, we wasn't going to get into the conspiracy side of things because that's just a different type of episode. This was just a reminder of what happened almost 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Follow socials. Thanks for tuning in.
For reals.
Peace.
Peace out.